Hello, everybody, and it's edition number 198 of the Frank and Stan chat. And for those of you who are watching on the video, we have a guest with us. Hello, Caroline Popplewell. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And actually, just a little clue for those of you, this is sort of insight into how we put these videos together. The person who's at the bottom of the screen is generally the person that's the last one to join. So that gives an indication here of the order in which we joined the video chat. So, hello, Stan. How are you?
Can I just say on my screen, Caroline is at the bottom. However, I admit to being rushed and late. I could say because the link didn't come through, but
Well, you could do.
that would
You
be
wouldn't
harsh.
say that, would you? That would be too hard.
As I only rang you at 2 minutes to say where is it? Yeah, another of my diary mistakes, but
Yeah.
it's not even worth talking about because so many people know about my diary and how it doesn't work. So
It's a trait that we've come to love, Stan, isn't it? Really, always live with. Anyway, Caroline, thank you very much for joining us.
Welcome.
We haven't actually met before, have we? But
No.
I know two family members reasonably well. So, and I wouldn't mind you just sort of explaining who you are and what you do, and also the sort of work you've been doing that sort of interested me to get you to come on as a guest.
Okay, so I'm a primary school teacher in Greater Manchester, and I've been teaching for well over 20 years.
Wow, right.
I've taught all age ranges. I currently work part-time, and I've been doing part-time a master's degree for 3 years in education.
So
So
what was, yeah, what sort of field of education?
So in the first year, I was doing the topic learning and teaching, educating the next generation, which is what got me interested in my dissertation, which I'll discuss after. The second year, it was understanding your educational practice, and then this final year that I've just completed was all to do with my dissertation,
Which was about?
which was about a small scale investigation examining the impact of an eco school programme on children's environmental actions.
Wow. Um,
In the first year, we learned about, we thought a lot about education for the future and how it's just not fit for purpose. And that got me really interested in this particular topic, which then led me to go on to doing the eco lead at school. We never had one before. And then so I thought, well, perfect. It will fit in exactly with my dissertation, 12,000 words I need to do. So something I'm really interested in, and I have enjoyed doing it, though it's been hard work.
yeah, yeah. So you did it with your class or in the school?
So yeah, we chose there was one eco lead, one eco person from each class from year one up to year six. So I did it with the juniors though. We did interviews and observations
Right.
to give me my data for
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we did.
So I mean, I'm just, I suppose at the end of the day, um, were you always interested in this area, or was it that there was an eco school, sort of structure, and you jumped onto it because actually, it's easier to do that, to investigate that, than actually have to then set it up, which then runs the risk of you tainting the evidence, isn't it, I suppose?
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was always interested in that, but well, on my first year, I was so inspired by it, and I actually then went to my head teacher and said, "Would I be able to do this eco school
Mm.
program?" Basically, because we never had it before, but I just really interested. It was additional to my role. I was RE lead, so I took it on as an additional thing, but. It took ages to get going because I didn't get time for it, and that's the key. I needed allocated time for it. to happen, and that happened last year. And as a result, we followed the program, and we actually got a distinction for the award too. So
Right.
we didn't just get basic level.
So,
So yeah,
so what did
always
you have?
something I've been interested in.
So how, I was sorry, Stan, to keep sort of chipping in,
Okay, so
but but I mean, who was judging that then? What did you have to produce to actually sort of achieve that award?
So we did it through the Green Flag Award accreditation. So it's a 7-step framework that we need to go through, like see how our school is at certain things, like recycling, etc. Through that, then you create an action plan with the eco team, and then you prioritize topics that you're going to focus on. Small step things that you can do, like we did a litter pick um, with um, a local group that I got in touch with, and we did. Oh, the whole school did stuff about Earth Day, and yeah, it was really, really interesting. The
Yeah.
children really loved it. I mean, they were so enthusiastic about it. I had children in there that weren't necessarily, you know, performing very well
Yeah.
educationally, but they were so enthusiastic about, are we having a meeting today? What are we doing in eco today? Really loved it.
And there's a story there, though, isn't there? There's a much deeper story, which
Absolutely.
about whether or not too much of the education system is determined by the need for an outcome over here,
Yes.
and in order to get on that to that outcome, it's viewed that what you've got to do is start your sort of train journey over here and work your way up to this sort of like end journey, this station. And along
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
way, that path is viewed to be, as you try to make it as straight as you possibly can, to make
Yeah.
it as easy as possible. But of course, by doing that, you miss out the lovely valleys and the lovely twists and turns, within the countryside,
Yeah.
going. So I think it's really, quite significant that, you were saying that for some of the lower attaining children, this is something that excited them.
Oh, it really did. They were so enthusiastic. They were giving me suggestions about doing things. They were talking about it, and I had other children saying to me, "Well, I've actually had this week. Can I be eco lead this week, this term?" And then I'm saying, "Well, pitch to me why you'd like to do it." And then they have it. It gave it a real buzz, and it was real high priority in the school as well.
Mhm.
We did assemblies and things. So, um, yeah,
I assume that the school leadership bought into it then. That,
yes, yes, because we've got a
that-
forest school area in our school. So all the children are given the opportunity to do at least 3 sessions of forest school a year. It is a large two-form entry school that I teach at. Um, but they did, yeah. The head
just
teacher.
over my time, I've sort of talked with teachers who've got fantastic and enthusiasm about stuff, got their children, but unless the school leadership grabs it and says, yes, this is something we're going to do, it either remains in one classroom or a couple of classrooms, or it slowly dies out. So I'm
It's
good to
not
hear.
sustainable.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the things that part of my dissertation, one of my recommendations is about making it whole school and putting it into the curriculum.
Mm.
Because I can see there's real benefits from that,
Yeah.
from the research that I've found.
But I mean, this isn't anything about your school or any particular, well, not any particular school, but actually we talk on this chat quite a lot about vision. What is an educational vision, and how does that feel? And I think Stan and I have spoken many times about senior leaders that we meet who I don't think have a very clear understanding about what they're trying to do as a head teacher, because they've not really had to think very deeply about, what's this experience going to be like? What's this journey going to be for? Who's it going to be for? and along the way, how are we going to keep everybody interested, young people interested in it, you know? So I think that it's the real challenge is to ensure that, you know, that whatever you produce is powerful enough to try and influence, you know, some key leaders. It might be at your school, but it could be at other schools, that they look at your research and say, well, yeah, I mean, we need to think much more deeply about how we integrate all of this into a more meaningful experience for the children.
And that's it, because my school is part of an academy trust. I feel like I should pass on my dissertation to the CEO. So then, because I don't think in the other schools in the trust that they actually do have an eco school, they follow an eco program. So I feel like
Well, yeah, I mean, that's impact then, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the next stage to get the leadership of the trust engaged with it and for it.
I'd just like to find out how I've done first, though. 10th of December, come back to me.
Right. I think the thing is that also you need to think very carefully. This is about any sort of a good idea, isn't it? About how you shift that up, you know. So I mean, I'm just thinking, as somebody who's been a CEO of a trust, you know, the worst thing to do now is to sort of just send me an email with that as an attachment. You know, I mean, I get that will probably go to a PA and it might not even get to me. So, you know, so this is, I don't know what you think, Stan, but, you know, you need to think very carefully about how you communicate all this.
Always face to face, Frank, with children. So invite the person in, get them to talk to some children, see the enthusiasms in the children, and get the children to challenge them.
Yeah.
Certainly, the school where I'm a governor, it's often the children that are pushing governors to get involved with A and B and C and wanted to know why they're not. I do think that face to face and to feel that enthusiasm from children is the spark that will get other people to build on. I don't think you can do it coldly. I don't think even with your successful dissertation and saying that I've shown that it'll do X, Y, and Z is quite the same as seeing a child who buzzes about something that they're doing and get that feeling into your senior managers within the trust.
Yeah.
I have got a particular challenge this year, though, in keeping the momentum going because I haven't been given any time.
Right.
So it's going to be really difficult because I could plan something every Tuesday for half an hour, but now I've been given a little bit of time, which will involve taking the children out of maths, and we all know how important maths is. And then I can't even find the children in the infants because they're on dinner.
Right.
So I can see the success of it not carrying on because of that particular reason.
Yeah.
But I think this is all part of the research, isn't it? You know, in a way,
it is.
You know, the next phase of it is about evaluating. You know, that it appears to have done well in establishing itself, but actually,
absolutely,
you know, because I'm not going to be critical of anybody at your school or anything, but
no,
you know, but it's about just trying to, you know, share those problems with the leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you manage to achieve that and to get a bigger foot through the door, then there's a chance you could do the same, you know, in other schools as well. So, yeah.
And I'll get that opportunity when it's my appraisal as well.
You will. You will.
And I'll take it along with me. My recommendations are, and then.
So, what university did you do it through?
Well, I did it through the Orphan University.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 60 credits over 3 years each year. So.
Well, good luck. Yeah. So, Stan, what's caught your eye this week?
A bit of leadership, I think. If it's that, it's we've been critical. We have for the last few years been critical of the government when they've got things wrong, got the optics wrong as much as anything else. And I just think in the last 2 or 3 weeks, the government, which is now a Labour government, is getting things wrong, and you know, just not saying no to the things that they should say no to, and not saying yes to the things that they should. I mean, it's come to a head, I suppose, with me when I'm hearing that the Prime Minister's accepting gifts for various things and donations for various things, which I think you ought to be able to say no.
Mm.
It may be legal, but the ethics and the optics of it don't feel right. And I think as a leader, and I hope I was like this in school, if it wasn't the right thing for the school to be doing, we said no. It's you've got to be strong enough to say, yes, it is very tempting to receive this. It is very tempting to have that, but we'll have to turn that down. I can remember turning down some money when I was ahead, which
Yeah.
is most unusual when you're a school, because the local population was in dispute with the local factory because of the smell and noises and stuff it was making, and the factory offered us some money towards a football kit, I think it was, and much that I wanted that, and much that the factory said, well, we won't tell anybody, we'll just
Yeah.
donate it quietly. I just felt in those circumstances it wasn't the right thing to do, so we said no.
Yeah.
And I can't believe a government new in with all the exciting things that I know they've got challenges, but they've got exciting things that they can do as well. Can't manage to get it right and present themselves as something very different than the last government. And it's getting to me already. I
Well,
just
I remember a governor when I was ahead saying, "I've got." It was the second headship was in a nice, quite posh area. All right, so you'll know this from what I'm going to tell you. So he said, "Oh, where are you going on holiday this year?" And the three children and a big mortgage. I think we were just going to crawl over to France and stay in a friend's house near San Malo, and that they were doing up. And so I explained that. He said, "Oh, I've got a villa in Mallorca. Um, you can use it if you like. We're not using it this week. You have it." You know, I said no. But actually, I didn't tell the children, but obviously they would say, "What?" But actually, because you can see further down the line the conflict that would arise. When perhaps you've got like your school, Caroline. One of the problems is who's teaching in a two-form entry, who's teaching year five this year. You've got a change, and parents don't like the teacher that they're allocated to. All that sort of stuff is what would play out down the line, and they'd think. This person might not have thought they want a favour back, but there's always the risk, isn't there, that they will want a favour back, and that makes it difficult to resist it, really.
yeah, and it's I mean, you as a head teacher, me as a head teacher, Caroline as a teacher, you don't have people highly paid to advise you to
Uh,
say this is what you should do in these circumstances. And yet these ministers have that. They have access to people who say, "Ooh, let's have a look how that might look in 12 months' time. If you do this, then this happens, then that happens."
yeah, yeah.
And it seems to me that you've got to listen to those people who know what they're doing.
I also think it was rather sort of own goalish, wasn't it? For the head of staff, to be earning, was it £3,000 more than the Prime Minister? It would have been easier just to make it £3,000 less than the Prime Minister, wouldn't it? And it would have gone away. I always thought it was a bit rich of the BBC to be, reporting on that as a shock horror. When their star presenters are earning probably twice that
Yeah.
members of staff salary. I mean, it's a bit rich that really. But yeah, I agree totally with you, Stan. It seems these are open goals that they're just, allowing to happen. Go on, Caroline, what's caught your eye?
Okay, so mine's a local story. So it's because I really like football, and it's about a football club providing autism sensory packs. So it's Morecambe FC, and they partner with an autism charity to provide free sensory packs for fans. It's provided by Be Unique, and it includes ear defenders and fidget toys. So my youngest daughter, comes to football with us, though she's not on the spectrum. She likes to have ear defenders. She finds the match too loud. It makes a difference to her. She doesn't have it with her. She's not very happy at all. So I thought it was a great incentive and hope it could roll out to the bigger clubs too. I'd like it to roll out at my club.
Go on,
That's really interesting because as you attend things like, I've been to Old Trafford lots of times. I now go to more rugby league than anything else, and you're used to that noise. And it's only since, what was it, last Christmas, I think, when I got an Apple Watch, that now during the game I'll get an alert to say this is a loud environment you
Oh,
are in,
really?
and telling you how long you should or you shouldn't remain in it for a certain amount of time because it can damage your hearing. And I mean, at Salford, I mean, there was only like 4,000 people in the whole ground. So how it got so loud, I don't know. But it just made me think that I'd never considered that before as a risk to your hearing. And there I was with looking at my watch going beep, 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 beep. And you also did it when we were on holiday and my wife had a coughing fit. It also the noise of the coughing was, and I wasn't in a safe environment.
But yeah, I mean, we've got a granddaughter that's also a bit sensitive to that, and but and we went to a restaurant together, her and I, and she found just the fact there were too many adults in the room, and it was quite a noisy sort of environment. She found that she didn't feel, it wasn't that she was scared of it, but she just didn't feel comfortable in that environment. So it always seems sensible to sort of have these headphones or earphones, whatever, so that you can then take them off, rather than go in and then
Yeah,
quick put them on,
yeah,
We
So
have to warn our grandson that something's going to make a noise. So if you've got the vacuum cleaner, we have to
mm,
say, this is going to be noisy, and then he chooses usually to walk away into a different room. Also, if you've got something noisy on.
yeah, yeah. I don't know whether somebody said this is sort of partially COVID driven, but I think a lot of things are being pushed back onto COVID,
yeah,
but I just think we're a bit, well, I know our children when they were, obviously our eldest is in their 40s, but, I think that for, these were probably issues, but they weren't managed in that way,
yeah.
it was probably just a case of get on with it, but
Definitely, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and also, that's the Morecambe Football Club, and that we're not sponsored by that business, by the way. But
No,
actually, that's quite a relatively cheap thing to do, isn't it? It's not a massive
no,
investment. It's not
exactly.
for all fans. It's quite a good way of the
But it
business.
will make a difference to
Yeah,
some of those children and
yeah,
encourage some of them to come, which is what it's all about,
It will make a
being
difference to the other
inclusive.
fans who don't know about autism and
mm,
the effects it can have, because they will see physically some children now with ear defenders on.
Mm.
And it might just pose people to ask the question.
Yeah, it
yeah,
opens up a
Yeah.
conversation.
yeah. Yeah, because it's also reminded me of the
Really good.
conversation we had with the colleague who runs or is sort of CEO of a sort of independent residential school that's offering was it sort of 4-day weeks for
Yeah.
their members of staff, and they were doing similar sorts of things for their students as well, having to be much more sensitive about those sorts of issues. Um, so they're always looking for sponsorship. So it might be possible to connect the business with that special school. Anyway, for me, yeah, I went to a conference today at Aintree Racecourse. It was for Liverpool schools. So there were must have been about 300 head teachers in the room, and I'm on the education board for Liverpool, and it was all about attendance. I do understand, behaviour, attendance, permanent exclusions, all of this is all part of the COVID recovery, and there are real problems in that. And there are a lot of schools in Liverpool doing an absolutely amazing job at this. But if colleagues are watching this, listening to this, there are significant changes in the guidance around all of this. So I think, if you haven't looked at that yet, or your head teacher or your senior members of staff have, but you haven't, it's well worth looking at what the responsibilities are now for schools and how that you can, this much greater emphasis on connecting into local authority services and health services. So it's really sort of trying to bring a little bit of that, the sort of services together, under the sort of the Blair roots, every child matters. But it felt a little bit about going back there. But there was a session on early years and sustainable development. And I just thought, well, it'd be interesting to go to an early years session, having had all this high-powered stuff, And there were only 9 delegates in the room, and it was the most fantastic session because it was uplifting, it was positive, it was trying to give a picture of, some young people are turned off by education because the experiences are not like what you're describing, Caroline. You're trying to do is to start with the children and the young people about, what experiences do we need to offer them, that actually make learning a little bit more exciting and relevant for them. And it was Everton Nursery who were leading on it, and they emphasised the sustainable goals which the government committed to in 2015. There are 17 of them. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. Anyway, the quality education is 4th in the 17. The first 3 are no poverty.
Yeah.
The second is 0 hunger. And the third is good health and well-being. And as she said, you don't get quality education unless you get the first 3.
Wow.
So that's why it's easy for a government to sign and pledge to that and then completely ignore it, and it feels to me as if there is so much within that you feel as though, well, if we could just get back to a little bit more about the child, starting from the child. And she also referenced, the Reggio Emilia work that we've been supporting as well, Stan, So it just was so uplifting. And I'll be trying to get that colleague on Frankenstein chat, I promise. And, it's just a shame that 293 or 91 delegates, were not able to see it. The best bit of the day was just not seen by the majority of people.
Don't you find that's often the case with an early years presentation, though, that you come out from it lifted because we're talking in the main about children having learning experiences rather than what they're learning to do. And I know we crackle on about this like 2 old men normally about, oh, guys, but I just can't understand people who can't see that the experience that children have is so important. And you can easily turn children off anything by the way you treat it in the very early years and through primary years. I mean, we still use the generational thing, or for our older generation saying, well, oh, I can't do painting, I can't do art, I can't draw. And that's because of a generation where that wasn't part of what they did. And we're going to be the same thing because the arts have been squeezed out all but of the curriculum.
And it's not just 2 old men banging on about
Oh,
it. I'm also banging on about it too.
And I'm not suggesting that schools aren't putting time in to do the arts, and they know it's important. But when you look at and I don't want to mention Michael Gove in this, but you look at the damage that he did, and now I know Frank's reading the book. I haven't bought it yet. Sam Freeman's book, where they say the baccalaureate
failed state.
Yeah, was decided in order to give him something to say on. Was it on the Andrew Marr show?
It was.
So they made it up as an idea and fed it to him, which caused so much damage for music, for art, for drama in secondary schools that in my view is somebody should be in prison for that.
Yeah.
The damage that did, and the concept that it was just put together in order to give a headline. That is just awful.
Yeah, yeah.
Awful.
And that's why my first year of my master's was so interesting, looking at, what needed to change in education. And but it's like, how can we change this kind of thing? We know what needs to happen, but it's, how do we go about making that happen?
You just think that
Mm,
my view is the wrong people are on the latest thing.
yeah.
We've got this home. Well, a lot of work was done on putting that together. I wonder how many of the people on this panel for planning the curriculum.
This is the Professor Becky Allen government-led review of the curriculum and assessment system. I
So,
feel
but
like a commentator keeping it all together.
I know Nick Waters isn't on it.
No, and there's no business leader. I'm not suggesting that education's for business, but in that sustainable goals element, the economic needs
Yeah.
of the individual are one of the three pillars. So
But when we speak to people in business, they tell us what they want, and that doesn't fit with the agenda of the current
no,
system in education, so it's ignored.
yeah.
So when they say we want people who can think on the feet, we want people who can work with others, we want people who are bright and come up with ideas. Well, that's not how we try and knock that out of them by the end of reception if we can,
Mm.
and get something that's packed with knowledge.
I think a lot of things though, this area is very polarized, isn't it? We've talked about behavior. The approach to behavior becomes very polarized. You're either in this camp or you're in that camp. And that came out today, to be honest. Some heads were talking to me about having difficulties in delivering, this sort of approach, particularly around a new system around fining parents. So they've pushed it very hard so that in effect there will be a criminal record, on the third offence. And they're hoping that no one will go that far, but I suspect we will get there.
Oh,
And of course,
yeah.
on the other hand, you have developing a relationship with parents and the carers and whatever. If at the back of that is this threat, it really affects the starting point. Because they will view, some of them will view, all you want to do is get me to that end. You know. So yeah, I think all of that is just that polarization around
Yeah.
where the curriculum is, and what this means compared to what that means. I think
And the answer is probably somewhere in
somewhere in the
between.
middle.
Or
Yeah.
what works best for your
Yeah,
context?
yeah.
What works best in
Mm,
your school for your context? And I saw something that Nick Gibb had said that he regrets. And one of the things he says he regrets was not finding out what works in schools and making all of the schools do the same
mm,
thing.
Mm.
And you think you've not learned all those years, you've not learned anything because it doesn't work like that in
mm,
education.
mm.
If it did, 50 years ago, it would have all been sorted out. It doesn't work.
No, but I
Content.
think the important thing about the research you've done, Caroline, in my opinion, is that it makes you more critical of other research that you see. You can
Oh, yeah.
interpret it, can't you? You can sort of
Yeah.
say, well, actually, that's only from 60 kids. It's
Yeah.
it's in Gateshead, that might have a little bit of value. It's probably worth reflecting on it, but it does make you more sort of, I don't think a little bit broadly about messages that come from afar. That this is the way to do it, and this is what's going to work.
That's
I
it.
always go back to things like real books. Do you remember real books? Worked fantastically in Australia, where I think it was introduced and done, but it was done by schools who the whole staff sat down, sorted out what they wanted to do, and said, right, this is the way we'll do it. Instead of using a reading scheme, we'll use real books. And they planned it, and they did. That then got watered down to throw away your reading scheme and use real books. And it's a disaster. It's just, sorry. I get
Go on, Karen. Are you going to say?
No, yeah, part of obviously doing my dissertation was about the critical analysis, and
Mm,
I'm doing a lot of reading, obviously, around what eco schools are like in other countries and things, and there's fors and against that, pros and cons. It's just it added to the body of evidence around that topic. So, yeah.
good.
I don't, it won't lead to big changes, but to do with the context of my school and things, um, yeah, hopefully it'll lead to small changes
Yeah,
that
but
might lead to big.
it's probably improved you, and
Well, it
that's
has,
real,
yeah.
real value for
But
your.
and I feel even more passionate about that subject.
Great.
So, where do I go from here?
Oh well, we're available for consultancy purposes to to enable develop a plan. But no, I think what Stan was saying though is just do whatever you do, it's got to be face to face and getting kids somewhere or children in there. They're your
Yeah,
greatest messengers,
absolutely.
aren't
Yeah,
they? Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I just want to end because what's that now? Nearly 40 minutes, believe it or not. Is uh, Caroline's father and I were at the Old Trafford yesterday for the cricket, and it was a beautiful day. So the day, what was it, the 18th September? It truly was like a midsummer's day. It was amazing. And Lancashire, we were watching, were fighting back against Somerset. Somerset needed to win this game in order to keep their hopes of winning the championship alive. And the behaviour of some of the Somerset players was pretty on the edge, you know.
Mm.
Um, and I'm all for sort of competitive sport and everything, but really, it's not a good look when an international player, an England player, bowls a ball. The ball is pushed back by the batsman, and then the player appeared. Got to be careful with my words. To run down the pitch and basically take a chunk out of the pitch by kicking the ball back to the wicketkeeper. There was no way that there was any run taking place. The ball had been bowled. I think the over was over, and then the way that the team responded to the umpires were amazing. They were just sort of like static and moved very slowly. They were sort of in black and white, quite threatening. But the way that they managed that situation was really calm. But what happened was that also highlighted how irresponsible the Somerset players were, and there was a lot of pointing, and we can't hear the language, but actually you could see there was a prolonged discussion where the umpires just kept their nerve completely and held their own. There was a lot of really poor peeling, yeah, it was not a good look. And today we weren't at the cricket today, but it's going to be a close finish, I think, tomorrow. But it was a great day, but a shame that you know the standards of professional sport, I don't think were maintained yesterday. Your dad might have a different view on that, but
he's
anyway,
not
thanks,
he's
Ian.
not shared it yet.
No, thanks, Ian, for coming. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so that's the end of episode 198. One more, and then one more after, just to prove we get to the 200. We do have a special guest for the 200th, but we're not quite sure whether it's all going to be lined up neatly. We haven't quite sorted the date and time of it, so we might hold that in abeyance. But treat it as the 200th edition, and then sort of just play it when it's ready. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline.
See you next week, Stan. All being well.
Yeah, good luck with pushing it forward into the trust.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Because actually, that's where it's got to go now.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So cheerio, everybody, and see you next week.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.